Play Bigger: How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Details for a new generation on how to differentiate your company and create success. This wild book provides many modern examples of how current kings in the market position themselves as market leaders. Why does this book matter? It's a great question. This book is for people who want to be the king. The authors put this book together to help us understand what it takes to be the industry leader. If you want anything else, if you want anything less, you're out. This book matters because it tries to motivate us to think bigger. It gives us great examples of how modern companies took the spotlight and how they hold onto it. So I'll put it to the group. For you, why does this book matter?
Well, one reason why this book matters to me is that I think it is a great example. It shows so many great examples of how to innovate and how to disrupt. And if you want to innovate or disrupt personally or professionally, this is the book you need to read.
So to me, this book explains exactly why and how category leaders are perpetually successful. And it also shows that their successes are not by accident, and they're more planned and they're designed because they are more focused on being different rather than being better than the competition.
And to summarize, this book is not for those that think getting a slice of the market is sufficient. If you think having the best product will make you a winner, or if you are happy with the status quo, this book's not for you.
I think it's important to remember this book provides a lot of non-traditional ways, or at least non-traditional to what we think of now, on how to become successful. And one of those ways is to become the category king. Being king in any kind of category means that you are the first in the brain, and that means you are the category leader. Examples of this for specific categories would be social media. Facebook, that's the king. For search engines, Google, they are the king. Online shopping, Amazon, they are the king. But remember, you don't have to be big in a category or the biggest person to dominate your category. So to the group, what in your mind, what does it mean to be the category king?
To be a category king, it means that you are, to steal a line from Apple, you're thinking different. You're answering a question in a way that other companies have not done so before. And one example of that would be Airbnb. So Airbnb, when they were thinking about what type of company they are, they made the decision of, hey, we're not a hospitality company. We're not going to go out there and try to compete against these big hotel chains because we can't, and they understood that. And the reason why they're so successful is because they invented this new category, which is, this idea of immersing yourself in a culture. You don't say, let's book a room on Airbnb.com. You just say, let's book an Airbnb. So that to me is a category king. It's looking at a problem that is in the market, but people may not even be aware that there's a problem until you step forward and say, hey, market, here's something that you didn't know you needed.
To me, this means to bring something new to the table. So in other words, to be a category king means to actually dominate the market. Because I remember back in the days, I had a friend of mine who was the category king. He was really good with physics. So he understood physics at the level that nobody else was able to understand that. So he became the king. So he was making a lot of money on the side. People were coming to him because any physics question that you can think of, anything you can think of science, physics related, he was able to answer that. See, he was the king. Everybody in the neighborhood, was going to him to find solution. We don't have to be Apple, we don't have to be Google, but even like right now, we are students. If you can be able to dominate something that nobody else can, I think you are definitely one of the kings.
I love that story. The idea that personally you can take what a big company is doing and apply it to yourself and say, I will become this thing, this commodity that people will desire, that will want. I love that. I love bringing something new to the table. That's an amazing thing that all of these category kings do. They make us think outside of the box. They create a whole new category many times, so they don't have to compete with other people in the same space. So how do you create a category, a product, and a company that all become the king?
I think there's two verbs that have been regularly used when you're talking about creating a category, product, or a company. And I think the category is actually the principal thing that you first need to create. And then you can identify the product, and then you can identify what kind of company you need to have to support that category. But the two verbs is creation or create, and as well as design. So it's to become and create that category. It's very intentional and calculated. It's not accidental. It's not a me too. It's not just researching how your other competitors are doing it, but you're trying to create a brand new category. Steve Jobs obviously was focused on technology because that's what his background was. That's something that he could solve the need for. So to create a category, you need to identify how you can meet that need.
To create a category, you also have to encourage competition, because what they talk about in this book is that when you have identified a new category, kind of like how it's not really meant to, you're not creating a new category to disrupt another category. That's just kind of a byproduct of that. For example, Elvis, he did not set out to disrupt jazz music. He set out to create rock and roll, which consequently disrupted jazz music. Same thing goes with Tesla and Elon Musk. You know, love him or hate him, he had all of these patents available that he had created for his electric car company. And he knew that if he kept holding onto those patents, then no competition would come in. And the credibility of him creating a new category was when he let go of all those patents and said, competition, if this is a real category, you will come and you will do the same thing that I'm doing. And him doing that legitimized him as the category king, Tesla as the category king in electric cars.
So something that the book touches on is point of view, or POV. And basically your POV is kind of like your differentiator. And one example of this is Salesforce. When Salesforce was first coming into the market, there were other similar tools out there, other CRMs. They weren't very user-friendly, weren't very intuitive. So Salesforce comes along and their whole thing is, no software, no more software. We're anti-software. And this whole idea of we're breaking it down, we're making it so simple for you. And this was their POV. And something that stuck out to me that the book said was, this is your investor relations best friend is your POV. If you have a strong POV, you can go to investors and say, this is what makes us different. And obviously now Salesforce is gigantic and their stock ticker is CRM. So they are the king.
What separates like Salesforce from just being another software company and being more of a category leader or a category king, is they even came up with terms to call their competitors' products. So for example, on-premise software was not a term in the industry at that time. When Salesforce was building their product, they had to communicate how they were different and separate themselves. So they came up with this term on-premise software to talk about, having it software installed on your computers at your company, while Salesforce was a cloud-based software in the internet. So it was pretty interesting how they were able to make a category that they were doing things to help their competitors by separating them.
I think that is the essence of all of these examples of these companies, is that they did everything on purpose, right? They called things differently because it was going to put their company or their product in a better light, and it was going to make them become the king of the category. Something a little bit closer to home for me. So the company that I work for is Kodiak Cakes. I know I talk about this a lot in class, so I'm sorry, but they are just another pancake company. That's all they are. There's other juggernauts that sit out there and they sell pancake mixes just like we do. However, Kodiak Cakes, they're positioning their product and they're designing their product in a different light. So they position themselves as a solution to a problem that you didn't even know that you had. That your breakfast lacks the healthy fuel that you need to conquer your day.
Not all category kings are the category creators. They're not necessarily the ones that created that category. Now, they may be one of the first ones, but they're not the first ones normally. Apple has done this multiple times with the launch of the iPad. They weren't the first tablets of this iPhone. They weren't the first smartphones. And so there is room for disruption in these new categories that have been launched for a king to come in and take that place.
Just wanted to add something. So I think it's all about product design, just like everybody said. I work for a company. I work for one of the largest semiconductor industries. Semiconductor companies, and we design a lot of memory chips. And we just came up with a new design. It's actually, we've never done this before. It's one of the new designs that we just came up with. It's called 3D XPoint. We will definitely be one of the category, be one of the kings in this market, because we compete a lot with Samsung and Intel, and this will be one of the biggest thing in the game. And we just designed it I think it's been about 10 years ago. I think it's all about product design. If you can make something new, you can come up with a lot of solutions. You can bring some new solution to the table.
I think this was a good example of how being intentional in everything that you do will provide you that success, which is why in the book they go over category, product, and company. So what do you do after this? Well, the next thing you need to do is create that lightning strike. Now, a lightning strike represents a bolt of energy, something that races straight to the heart of the audience. That comes straight from the book. I didn't make that up. Examples of this might include launch parties, user conferences, media blitzes. I think we're all familiar with those types of things. That's what a lightning strike is, right? You are trying to change the way people think about your product and causing a change in their buying behavior. That is the real purpose of this lightning strike.
So specifically, the Apple keynotes where they introduced the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad, those three were lightning strikes. They were introducing a new category that by stating the problem that the audience didn't know they had, then providing the solution. And that's why like those keynotes are, the three most memorable keynotes from Apple.
Yeah, lightning strike really is your go-to-market strategy. I mean, it needs to be boisterous. It needs to be a form of disruptive. I mean, when we talk about Salesforce, you talk about how they were coining the previous competitors as on-premise software. And so that really just sort of frames it that we are completely different. We are not the same as them.
If your world is smaller, if you're thinking about, okay, maybe I'm not the size of an Amazon or a Google. A lot of the book talks about how when you first hit your initial lightning strike, you're going to want press on you. You want articles to come out about the problem that you're trying to solve. You're going to want to talk about the product that is coming in here that you're creating that's going to solve that problem. And then not only that, but you have to have a strategic plan for when competitors want to come in and they start doing stuff to try to counteract your lightning strike, that you can kind of use that as fuel for your lightning strike still. So, the lightning strike is not a one-time event. It's a calculated marketing initiative to really push this problem that you're trying to teach the market that it has.
And I just want to make a note that there have been plenty of failed lightning strikes as well. And a lot of the times this is due to, Me Too products, or, when you're trying to go up against a category king that's already established. One example that comes to mind is the Microsoft Zune. I don't know if any of you have used one of those before. I personally never have, but if you talk to people that used them at the time, they would all say good things about them. That they were all good products, but the problem was, the iPod was already the category king at that point.
So we determined that a lightning strike, it has to be impactful. You never forget being struck by lightning. That's something you'll never forget in your whole life, right? And that's how it has to feel. When you release or have one of these events where you release that product and really show it to the world, it can never be forgotten. All right, so what? I feel like you get to the end of something and you go, all right, what did I learn? Why does this even matter to me? For me, my personal takeaway is you don't have to be the best or better. You just have to be different. And different means that you can be the best at that different thing, at that different category. For me, it's an extremely helpful thing for those of us who feel like there are so many ideas out there. The market is saturated with so many different things. How can I make something that's better? Well, you don't have to do that. You just have to be different.
My biggest takeaway was the courage that's needed to be able to carry through your vision and not to be distracted by either customer requests or outside forces, but truly understand what problem you're trying to solve, how your category solves that problem, and being courageous to make difficult decisions to get there, to deliver that.
Well, one example that I can think of locally is Crumbl. Chocolate chip cookies have been around for, how many eons? But Crumbl, they really honed in on this insight where they said, hey, there are people sitting at home at 11 p.m. that have a sweet tooth, but everywhere's closed and they're already in their pajamas, so they don't want to drive somewhere. And so what if we bring cookies to them? And they kind of identified this problem and then they solved the problem. And now here we are, looking at their HQ across the street from UVU. They're going, wow, how did chocolate chip cookies turn into this?
It just made me realize that, I want to work for a company that's an iPod and not a Zoom. I want to do something big. So I'm either going to have to go work for a category king or create my own.
I plan on using the category design playbook to position myself as a unique solution to a company's problem that maybe they don't know they have yet, so that I can become the king and enjoy the lion's share of their profits as well.
And I think that brings us to what will be our class discussion. How do you apply category king principles to yourself? How do you become the category king of your life? I want to thank you so much for listening, and have a great whatever you're doing next.